I arrive in the city of stone and wood smoke, where the streets are too narrow for carts to turn quickly, and too narrow for fear to turn back. The air is damp, the gutters run dark. The market still opens, but people speak with half a voice, as if volume itself could summon danger. Then the bell begins. Not for celebration, not for worship. It rings like a metronome for grief, steady, unavoidable. Each toll is a new absence, a door that won't open again, a bed that will stay cold. When it finally stops, the silence is not relief. It is suspense. Who's next? This is Europe in the mid-1300s. Walled towns and trading ports, monasteries and crowded tenements, faith as daily oxygen and medicine as fragile guesswork. People know hunger and war. They know winter and loss. But they do not know what it feels like to watch death move faster than rumor. And then the plague arrives, quietly at first, like a bad week, like a fever season, until it becomes something else. A night that rolls across the continent, turning distance into a lie. Before the Black Death, Europe is not a strong body waiting to be tested. It is already tired. Harvests have failed often enough that hunger has become familiar. The memory of famine still lives in bones. Many people are underfed, which means their bodies have fewer defenses when sickness comes. Cities are growing, but cleanliness is not. Waste runs in open channels. Wells can be compromised. Animals live close to humans. Grain is stored in sacks where vermin thrive. Homes are crowded, and many families share space in ways that make privacy and distance nearly impossible. Trade, however, is thriving. Ships stitch together coastlines. Wagons and caravans tie inland towns to ports. This web feeds economies, and it also feeds catastrophe. The medieval world is more connected than it feels, and that connection becomes a highway for disease. People don't speak of bacteria. They speak of bad air, corrupted winds, imbalance, divine anger, the alignment of planets. When your tools are limited, meaning becomes your shield. But meaning can't stop an infection. I step into a Mediterranean harbor where the scent of salt mixes with tar, fish, and sweat. Normally, docks are loud, argument, bargaining, laughter. Today, there's a strange restraint. A ship has arrived, and the crew is sick. Officials debate what to do. Merchants push for unloading. Some people argue for isolation, keeping the ship offshore, controlling contact. But rules are uneven, and the temptation of profit is strong, especially when people already live near the edge. A sailor is carried down the gangplank. His skin is hot, eyes glassy. Beneath his arm, a swelling rises, painful, unnatural, a sign that the body has become a battlefield. Another man coughs hard enough to double over. Someone whispers a prayer without realizing they've begun. Then, locals fall ill. At first, the city tries denial. It's a fever. It's the season. It will pass. But death arrives too quickly. A rumor becomes a root. The inn by the gate, the fish market, the alley behind the church, and soon the entire city feels infected, even before it truly is. The first real change is behavioral. People stop touching. They stop lingering. They stop gathering. A city built on closeness suddenly tries to survive on distance. The terror of the plague is not only that it kills, it's that it kills fast. A person can be strong in the morning and collapsing by night. Fever burns through the body, chills follow, muscles fail. Then come the swellings, buboes, in the groin, armpit, or neck, throbbing like living bruises. In some victims, dark blotches appear under the skin, as if the blood has turned against its own vessels. In others, the illness reaches the lungs. Coughing, shortness of breath, sometimes blood. The sick become frightening, not only because they are suffering, but because they are a question mark. Is it safe to stand near them? To breathe near them? Families watch one another constantly. A hand on a forehead becomes a daily ritual. A child's cough turns a room silent. A husband hesitates at the doorstep, torn between duty and survival. And the plague refuses to behave like a moral story. It strikes the pious and the skeptical, the rich and the poor. Though the poor, packed tightly in poorer quarters, often have fewer ways to escape. In those days, the most terrifying knowledge is also the simplest. You cannot see what is killing you. I walk through streets that feel abandoned in daylight. A bakery is closed, no smoke from the chimney. A forge sits cold. A stall's goods rot because the cellar is gone. A cart stands oddly placed, left mid-task because the driver never returned. The Black Death doesn't just remove people, it removes functions. The sick need care, but caregivers fall ill. The dead need burial, but gravediggers die too. Priests are overwhelmed, and in some places, clergy vanish so quickly that last rites become rare. Officials post orders, clean waste, restrict gatherings, mark homes. Some cities attempt isolation houses. Some try to control travel, but the rules arrive into a fire already spreading. Doctors appear with robes, gloves, and satchels of herbs, attempts to fight bad air. Some are brave, stepping into infected rooms knowing what it may cost. Others exploit fear. Many are simply outmatched, and fear now becomes its own epidemic. A cough in an alley is treated like a weapon. A stranger at an inn is treated like a curse. Families hide illness, terrified of being forced out or of being blamed. There comes a moment when the bell rings so often that it loses meaning. People stop counting because counting no longer changes anything. In a world without microscopes, people search for explanations they can hold. Faith becomes louder. Processions form. Sermons burn hotter. Some confess as if confession could disinfect the soul. But when prayer does not stop the deaths, the social fabric stretches. Some lose trust in clergy who cannot deliver comfort or certainty. Others become more extreme. Flagellants march and whip themselves in public, hoping suffering will purchase mercy. And then comes the darkest reflex: blame. Outsiders are suspected. The poor are targeted. Witches are invented or hunted. In many places, Jewish communities are falsely accused of poisoning wells, leading to horrific violence and expulsions. Fear turns into cruelty because cruelty feels like action, and action feels like control. It is a tragic truth. The plague kills bodies, but panic can kill neighbors. Out of catastrophe, however, new habits are born. Some cities begin to experiment with isolation. Ships held offshore for a set time. Travelers delayed outside gates. Infected households marked or separated. The logic is blunt but revolutionary. If contact spreads sickness, limit contact. It isn't consistent. People still flee. Villages still accept travelers out of need or compassion. Trade still pulls at every barrier. But the idea itself signals a shift. Disease is not only a spiritual crisis, it is a civic crisis. Governance learns that it must manage invisible threats, not just visible enemies. This is one of the plague's strange legacies. In the darkness, the earliest outlines of public health begin to take shape. The countryside imagines itself protected by space and fresh air, but the plague follows roads and markets like a shadow. A merchant arrives. A family escapes the city. A priest travels to comfort the dying. Then a village cough becomes the village's future. In a small community, death is sharper. Everyone knows the names. When the smith dies, tools cannot be repaired. When the midwife dies, childbirth becomes more dangerous. When the priest dies, the village loses its center of ritual and record. Fields go unplowed, animals roam, the harvest suffers. Hunger returns, reinforcing the cycle of weakness. Europe's economy is a chain made of living links. The Black Death snaps those links everywhere at once. Then, gradually, the ringing slows. Not because a cure is found, but because the disease burns through vulnerable networks, seasons shift, behavior changes, and brutally, there are fewer people left for it to claim. Survivors step out into a quieter world, and it feels unreal, like waking after a nightmare and realizing the nightmare has rearranged your room. History pivots in that quiet. Labor becomes scarce. With fewer workers, wages rise. Survivors can bargain in ways their parents never could. Landowners and governments try to preserve the old order, sometimes by law, attempting to freeze wages and bind workers. Tensions build across decades. Rebellions and unrest flare later, fueled by the new awareness that labor has value because labor is rare. Inheritance reshapes society. Entire families vanish, leaving land and shops to new hands. Guilds relax rules because they need members. Town councils revise priorities. The church changes too. Clergy losses, plus a crisis of trust in places where faith could not explain the randomness. Culture grows haunted. Art and writing fill with reminders. Memento mori, remember you will die. Not as a fashionable gloom, but as a lesson carved into daily life. The Black Death does not end the Middle Ages in a single stroke, but it accelerates change like wind through a cracked door. When I leave this century, I carry the weight of what vanished and the stubbornness of what survived. A neighbor who still brings water to a sick house. A gravedigger who keeps working because he understands what happens if he stops. A city official who posts rules that may fail, yet posts them anyway. A mother who whispers comfort to a child she cannot save, because love does not require victory to exist. The Black Death is remembered as Europe's darkest shadow, but shadows exist only because something still burns behind them. And beneath the bell, beneath the fear, I see what history always reveals in the end. Civilizations are not only kings and cathedrals. They are ordinary people choosing again and again to keep life going, even when the world feels like it is ending.